All right, welcome to another Wellness Wednesday. I'm Dr. Stephen Ramos, Associate Medical Director with HealthTexas Medical Group, and every Wednesday we're going to be bringing you a short video with a guest to talk about important health topics. And this week my guest is Dr. John Lim, who is one of our new physicians over at the Parent Vital location. Dr. Lim, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about vaccines, and really the importance here is it's flu season. You know, with all the news of COVID and everything else coming out, I have a lot of patients coming in and asking about pneumonia vaccines, flu vaccines, shingles vaccines, etc. So Dr. Lim is going to help us kind of understand vaccines a little bit more and answer some questions for us. So, John, can you give us a little history of vaccines? I mean, what do you know when this all started and how we got to where we are today with vaccines?
We live in an environment that's very harsh. And historically, the vaccine started out with trying to figure out how to prevent death with smallpox. We actually started using a very archaic method. We actually scratched people with smallpox, okay, and then use that same instrument to actually make a large gash on someone else to try to see if that will give them immunity. And needless to say, that's a really ugly way to do it. You know, you're walking around with a large gash. If you don't die from the infection, you probably will die from the smallpox. So that was the first one. And then another, the next iteration of it was, people started going for looking at smallpox that have crusted, and then they ground this up, and then they blew it up the person's nose to try to get immunity. That is how we started out with all these vaccinations, and we said, hey, we can actually prevent this disease. And I think that's very important. That's the historical part of it. Now, the body also is able to adapt. Mm-hmm. Our body's unique, it's beautiful. It sees something, it adapts, and it fights off the next time it sees it again. That's your adaptive immunity, and that's the beauty of it. The only thing is that the body has to see it first. And if you don't see it, you don't recognize it, that's where the problem is. Same thing with the viruses that we fight off today. So we take vaccines, we introduce a portion or a part of that bacteria, virus, or a toxin that virus makes so that the body recognizes it. And so when the bacteria or virus or toxin comes into contact with us, the body pretty much says, oh yeah, I know how you look and I know how to respond to you. And so the body survives.
Yeah, I think that's a real simple way of just putting how vaccines overall have evolved for us in the last century or so, and how, like you said, with originally smallpox way back in the day, of the types of things they tried to do, it clearly didn't work out, and not anything like what we're using nowadays. But essentially just exposing our immune system to something foreign that it has not seen before, so that if it actually encounters it again, knows what to do with it, can handle it, take care of it, fight it off, and fight off the disease. And that goes to say a lot of looking at the flu vaccine nowadays. Before, yes, we used to, and even in some situations now, we still give a weakened form of the flu in a vaccine.
Right.
And so the body obviously will recognize that virus and be able to fight it off.
Exactly.
But the problem that we found out with that is, on rare instances or in certain individuals, that weakened virus can actually reactivate and cause the infection. So the majority of our vaccines nowadays are not viable organisms. They are chopped up bits or some kind of small representation of that infection.
Exactly.
So that we don't have that risk of accidentally infecting the person we're trying to vaccinate. That'd go against kind of what we were trying to do to begin with.
Right. And I'm sorry, I wanted to emphasize that really is because that's very important what you mentioned about chopped up parts of the viruses, because people might think, hey, if the body will recognize it after encountering it first, then why not get infected first, right? Mm-hmm. But the problem is, there's a reason why we're using weakened parts or chopped up parts of the virus, bacteria, or toxin. And that's because, if the body first encounters it, we don't know how to react to it, we get a severe illness. And some people will die from it. I'm sorry I interrupted.
So, first rule of medicine is do no harm. And so whenever we have a treatment or a vaccine, we want to make sure that we're not going to accidentally harm somebody or cause more problems than the good intentions that we had. So thankfully we have better technologies and pharmaceutical advancements to where we don't have to expose people to the actual infection in order to get them immunity.
Right.
One question that I get a lot from my patients, and you can help us kind of answer this, is, my doctor recommend I get 2 vaccines today. I get the flu shot, I get my pneumonia shot, I get my shingles vaccine. And they're worried, well, that's too much for my body to handle at one time. What do you say to that?
So I know that you may be concerned that you're getting too many things all at once, but I don't think there should be any worry to it at all, because those are different vaccines that you're receiving, and the body should be able to handle that. The thing is, why we need vaccines, though, for some bacteria or viruses more often than others, is because the body can't memorize everything. Let's just put it that way. You get exposure to one, over time the memory wanes. It's kind of like our memories too. You do something, you go to school, you study. After a while, if you don't use it, you lose it. So the body needs boosters, and that's one of the reasons why we get repeated vaccinations for some of the bacteria and viruses that's around us.
Yeah, and it's important to make sure you stay on top of these. If you ever have any questions about, do I need a booster for my tetanus or my pneumonia vaccine, or obviously your flu vaccine every year, talk to your primary care doctor about it, get information to make sure you are up to date, because all these vaccines that are out there, they really do help us, not on the individual level, but as a community. The more people that get vaccinated against certain infections and certain transmittable diseases means the less likely they're going to spread them out to the rest of the community. So it's important to do it for yourself, but it's also important to do it for our community. So always make sure you're up to date with everything that you got. Let's see. So when we talk about boosters, specifically around this time of the year with flu and everything going on, I get asked a lot of questions about the pneumonia vaccine.
Sure.
And there have been some changes in recommendations on the pneumonia vaccine versus the Prevnar, and which one, and who needs it when, and so forth. Can you shed some light onto that for us?
Sure. So there was a point about a few years back where we thought about, hey, everybody should be getting Prevnar 13 on top of the PPV 23 that we are already giving. We start giving the PPV 23 at the booster is at age 65. And then so studies always are done to make sure that we're doing the right things, even though we're already giving it. And we found out that if you're using Prevnar 13, it didn't really offer any more benefit than what you were getting, because majority of the people in the United States already got some of that vaccination when we were younger. And so that immunity actually carries forward. And so what we need is just a PPV 23. So we've gone back to just been giving the PPV 23.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to bring up, because a lot of people were used to maybe getting the Prevnar, the 13, periodically, or when they turn 65 again later on. But again, because so many of our younger people are being vaccinated earlier, it has kind of minimized that risk of infection, so we don't need it anymore. So again, another really good evidence that vaccines do work. They definitely work for us.
And not only that, but we only give what we need. It's not like we're just giving vaccines willy-nilly just because we can, right?
Yeah. Another good question I get is, sometimes I'll have a new patient or somebody that, maybe they just can't remember, did they get that pneumonia vaccine? Did they get their tetanus shot at the right time? Did they get their boosters at the appropriate time? And so what I'll tell my patients is, well, maybe we should go ahead and just give it to you anyways. I'd rather you have it than, maybe not. Is there any danger in getting vaccines too often? Or?
So if you're getting a vaccine because we can't recall whether you have received it or not, and a good faith effort to try to figure out from old records and whatnot are not available, it is to the patient's best interest for us to just give it. I don't think it's detrimental to the patient. The benefits definitely outweigh the risks on that aspect, so I think we should.
Yeah, and so again, I recommend that to my patients. If we can't really figure out, did you have it in the right time frame? Well, let's go ahead and do it again just to be certain. There's no real downside here. And that being said, if it's recommended to get the pneumonia vaccine every 10 years, 5 years, depending on your medical history. If I have a patient that comes in and says, you know what, I want it every year. We need to give me my booster every year. Is there any benefit to that?
No, actually there isn't. And one of the things you got to remember is that if your body develops memory cells, You know, it develops all that memory to figure out, okay, is this vaccine going to be, I mean, is this something that I need to remember or not? And so if you're giving it that often, you're really not getting any additional benefit from it. You're actually just wasting a lot of, you know, pain from getting an injection and possible complications. So I wouldn't.
And you know, the bottom line, it can get really complicated, and to some degree, each patient's a little bit different depending
Right.
on their medical history, what kind of medications they're taking. People may need boosters a little bit earlier
Right.
or at the recommended ages. So just always talk to your doctor if you have any questions about your vaccine history, or if you need another vaccine or booster. Have that conversation with your doctor. We're more than ready, more than prepared to help you navigate that as well. You know, vaccines, it's a broad topic. It's hard to kind of really get into the nuances and details of, you know, HPV vaccines, hepatitis vaccines, and,
Right.
you know, all that kind of stuff. But I think we hit kind of the majority of a good understanding of what vaccines do for us, how they work, how they affect, you know, each of us individually as well as our community. So I think that's great, and I really appreciate the insight here.
Thanks for having me.
And do remember, this is Medicare's open enrollment period all the way through December 7th. So again, if you have any questions about your Medicare coverage or plans, please give us a call at the number down below, or visit any one of our 17 locations. Again, you guys have a great Wednesday. Take care.